Well, I want to talk with you today a little bit about DEI, kind of give you a 30,000 overview of who we are, what we've been working on, what we've been doing, and then talk a little bit more about how, as you go throughout the next your next day or so together, how you can be intentional to think about DEI and the contributions you can make with that regard. And if you would click on that first link there, you'll see I want to introduce you to our team here. And so the Division of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion is the division that I lead. The office was actually started in 2005, and so we're in about our 17th year. But over that time, the division has gone through several changes and iterations in terms of our focus, in terms of what we think about, and also in terms of who we are in terms of the leadership. And as you know, Chancellor Robinson, our current chancellor, was actually vice chancellor for DEI at one point. So I'm Yvette Murphy-Erby, vice chancellor, and you see Ms. Ella. Ms. Ella, you want to wave? She's back there in the back, is the one that it keeps us all sane. And Ms. Ella has been with our team since the inception of the office in 2005. And you all probably know Angela Mosley-Mons very, very well. If you don't know her and you're in this room, I'm really surprised. But Angela is away today, or otherwise she would be here. Actually, her flight will be landing in about another hour or so. But she has done an amazing job in really helping us to do a better job of collecting with alumni. You know, she grew up and came out of alumni and is a longtime alum herself. And then Victor Wilson is also an alum, and Victor is our Senior Director of Development. And again, I want to thank Mark Power for making Angela and Victor possible, and in that he gifted them to our team. And then Carolyn Allen is the former dean that was actually on loan to us from the libraries, and she's been working with us around some very strategic priorities. And her term will be coming to an end in October because she's going to retire. But true thanks to the libraries for loaning her. And then this year, actually last year, we were able to do a contract with Sarah Bishop. And if you don't know Sarah Bishop, you've got to get to know her. But if you've been looking at our communications and said, wow, those folks in DEI are doing a much better job with communicating, it's all because of Sarah. Our newsletters, our magazines, our quarterly reports, all of those kinds of things are happening because we now have someone that's being very intentional to help us think about our strategic communication. And communication matters. So I want to thank Sarah for doing that. And then there's a second part of our division, and it's called the Ideals Institute. And if you would, there you go, click on there. And so the Ideals Institute is headed by Dr. Alicia Smith. And the focus of the Institute really is to think about people, power, and processes. How do we engage and facilitate change across our region, across our state, and even across the world? The Ideals Institute started in about 2019, and they have built a brand like none other. I mean, Harvard has been knocking on our door asking, can we get a little bit of help from the Ideals Institute? And so just lots of corporations and external partners are really looking to Ideals to help them think strategically about their DEI efforts and initiatives. And so they focus on training, consultancy. They also do a lot in terms of research and just dedicated to helping organizations create a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive culture and climate. And so Alicia Smith is the director of that institute. They just recently received a $2.3 million grant from the Walmart Family Foundation and the Walmart Foundations to help think more intentionally about DEI in our region. And so just wonderful things are coming and happening out of the Ideals Institute. Next slide, please. And so I want to start just talking a little bit about some key terminology, because I think this is going to be really important as you all go throughout your time together, not just here, but as you continue to function within your various chapters and societies. So the first one is diversity, and I think this is really important because a lot of people think about diversity in the wrong way, I think. When I throw the term out, even in classes, what tends to come to mind is folks think I'm talking about people of color, and oftentimes they'll even say black people. When I say, what do you think the meaning of diversity is? But that's not it. The meaning of diversity is much, much, much broader than that. And I like to think of it in terms of two key words. Anybody can think of what two words I'm thinking about that can capture the essence of diversity?
Variety.
Variety, okay, that's one good one, okay. Anybody can think of two. Two key words that might come together that really shape diversity. Creativity, okay, variety and creativity. Go ahead. Perspective. All of those are exactly right. And the two words that I put together that I share with students to think about diversity is simply people differences. That's all it is, people differences. How are we different and how are we alike? That's all it is, right? And it's really important. Now, is it important that we think about some of those more underrepresented populations when we think about differences in various sectors? Yes, for certain. But when we think about diversity, we're talking about people differences. And that is so important in an organization, particularly one this large and this diverse. Also, another key definition is equity and equality. Those are two. And people oftentimes confuse those. And so I just want to make sure that we understand the difference between them. Equality is treating everyone the same. Equality is treating everyone the same. And a lot of folks have that as their gold standard. They want to treat everyone the same. And I go, no, you don't. No, you don't. Actually, what I say is that sometimes treating everyone exactly the same could be the most unequitable thing that you can do, right? Why is that? Prime example is what Deb did today. Over the years, everyone has treated me the same when I come to speak at a podium. There's not a step stool, and the mic is usually way up here, and I'm usually trying to reach it. But when you think about who it is and who you're working with, or whatever it is you're after or trying to accomplish, when you think about what do they need specifically to be their best, to thrive and to succeed, that's more of an equity mindset. Equity says, what do we need to do to make sure that everyone has the equal opportunity to be their best, to thrive, right? So very different than treating everyone the same. Are there times when it is helpful to treat everyone the same? Yes, there are going to be some times when that's possible. But on a day-to-day basis, really, yes, equality is important, but equity rules, right? Because equity means that you're taking into consideration the individual and what they need to come into their full selves and to truly thrive. Not just get by, not just make it, but to truly, truly thrive. And then the last two definitions are inclusion and access. And inclusion simply is that sense of belonging, that sense of connection, that sense of feeling welcome and feeling a part of. And that is so important. We're talking about record growth in terms of students. Well, you know, we've had record growth before. But what we have to remember is not just about getting folks here, it's about helping them to matriculate through, helping them to stay connected, helping them to graduate and then become a part of our engaged part, because they are a part of our alumni society when they graduate, but to become an engaged member of our alumni society so that they can stay active and continue to champion generations to come to the University of Arkansas. So inclusion is that sense of, yes, I belong. Yes, I'm a valued part of this group, this society, this organization. And then access, that's a really important one because a lot of times there are opportunities, there are resources, there are things out there, but folks may not always have access to them, meaning that they may not know about them or they may not be able to get to those resources, right? And so a part of our work is also really focused on driving access, making sure that people have access to all of the many resources that are available on our campus and across our university. And so there are 5 core objectives that we think about, and these are what I call the pillars of our strategic plan. One is education and training, because that is important, right? We have to think about how do we change our mindsets. But I also say education and training in and of itself does nothing, very little, to really drive impact. It has to be coupled with some other things. But it is a very important pillar, right? And so we think about how do we weave diversity, equity, and inclusion into everything that we say and everything that we do. So we're talking about our classes, we're talking about our curricula, we're talking about our sessions like here with the Leadership Summit, just education and training to help folks to understand and to know things like our key concepts. Also, research and discovery. We are a Research One university, and so it is important that we think about research and discovery from a DEI standpoint, that when we're engaging in that. And that's how our campus has been so successful with receiving so many millions of dollars in external funding. It's because we understand the importance of DEI. When we look at our ability to receive those grants across our division, we have figured out the secret sauce, and we actually have a really strong colleague of mine, Dr. Marcia Shobe, that is a whiz at helping us to figure out how do we weave diversity into our various grants. There's a lot of funding, research dollars, and things out there to help us better understand diversity. And the University of Arkansas has been a leader in securing that type of funding because we understand that diversity is not just something you tag on at the end, but it's something that has to be intentionally embedded into your strategy and into your action. So research and discovery is very important. We also think about assessment in terms of what are we doing as a campus, and so really steadily checking ourselves and assessing what we're doing. The next one is outreach and engagement, and this is your house. This is where you all live primarily, right? This is how do we help folks to understand who we are as a university, what we have to offer, that they want to definitely be a part of us. I was talking with Ed a little earlier, and he was telling me that he is trying to convince his grandson to decide between Auburn or Razorback. We all know the answer, right? It definitely needs to be Arkansas Razorbacks, right? But what is it, and so how are we communicating that message that really Arkansas, it really is the better place to be? No one can carry that message like our alum. So it really is important that you all see yourselves as a vital part of our DEI strategy because I see you that way. The next one is inclusive practices, and these are just evidence-based best practices about how do we help folks to feel part and to feel engaged. And so we're being very intentional to develop templates and templates and toolkits and things of that nature to help every member of our campus understand and have resources to help them understand how to create that more inclusive environment. And then the last one is strategic leadership, supports, and accountability. And I love that last word, accountability, right? Because if we are not holding ourselves accountable, then what's the use, right? And so we really are trying to be very strategic to think about what are those strategic leadership maneuvers that we can make? How can we prepare our leaders to lead from a place of equity? And how can we make sure that the supports that are necessary for everyone on our campus to be successful are there? Next slide, please. And so how we do it, we talk a lot about collective impact, and that is so important. And all that means is that I believe that this work is everyone's work. When I was hired, I said to the provost, who was the person that hired me, is we've got to embrace a collective impact model. That it can't be that, that's the division's job or that's the Office of Diversity's job. No, DEI is everyone's business. We all have a role to play, and so we can leverage our assets, leverage our resources by working together. And I do think it's making a difference in shifting our culture and our climate here on campus. We also are about meaningful engagements, right? And not only engagements here on campus, but getting off the hill, getting across the state, getting out into the region, and really engaging with folks from wherever they are. And then being very intentional. And I love that this DEI conversation is on the agenda for the Leader Summit today because it's about intentionality. Brandy and her team have been very intentional to think about DEI, and I love that you all are thinking about that as well. And then how do we make sure that everyone's voice is heard, that as we go through all of the many things that we do as an alumni association, that we're being inclusive, and then that we're focusing on strategic competency. And there are three that I really want to highlight: transparency, authenticity, and equity mindset. Transparency, simply helping everyone to understand what it is we're doing, our successes, as well as areas that we need to grow in. If we're not willing to share that with our family, guess what? We're going to have a hard time overcoming whatever those challenges are. And so really helping us to be transparent and so that you all can then help us to grow better. And then authenticity, just really speaking our truth and talking about what it is that areas that we are growing in and areas that we are not growing in. And then again, the equity mindset. Next, please. And so the why, it's so important. You've talked about it already this morning, but there are 5 generations in the workforce right now. 5 generations, talking about people differences. I'm telling you, what Generation Z is doing right now is very different than my baby boomer experience. Very different, and how they see and think about things, so totally different. And so we really have to think about how do we speak to and help all of those 5 generations to feel a process and to feel a part of and to feel included. We also have a responsibility to prepare students across all of those generations. We don't just have freshmen coming straight out of college, coming to the U of A. Yes, they're here, but we also have, I met someone that was 67 coming back to the U of A to work on a degree, right? So we have folks at all ends of the spectrum. We have folks that are coming domestically as well as internationally. So it really is important that we're thinking about DEI and how we prepare students. And then what we all know is that there's so many positive outcomes associated with a diverse, equitable, and inclusive environment. Things from student success, to workforce readiness, to companies' bottom line, to CEO success. There's so many things that are tied right back to having a diverse, equitable, inclusive environment. And so it's something that we not only need to pay attention to, it's something that we must pay attention to. So here's the goal. Here's the goal for the U of A is to be recognized worldwide for its excellence as a diverse, equitable, and inclusive and anti-racist institution where all students, faculty, and staff can succeed and thrive, regardless of their ethnicity, gender, socioeconomic status, or any other characteristic. Thrive in terms of their research, in terms of their learning, their discovery service, their career readiness, and their success efforts. And so the big takeaway point is that DEI is important not only to the value of your degree, your name is on that sidewalk and your stock will continue to build as the U of A grows and continues to build, but our alumni, chapters, and societies are key to helping us be who we can ultimately become, the top of that epitome across our region, state, nation, and world, and even beyond. So you matter. Oops, I think it went back the other way. There you go. And so just wanted to show you, you can find this information on our website. I won't go over it, but if you would click on that link really quick, this is just our DEI impact report. And we started doing this with the help of Sarah this year. It really sort of thinks about what successes that we're having, and we produce this on a quarterly basis so that our chancellor and others can understand where we're going. And so it's out there. As you see, since 2007, since I took over as Vice Chancellor in 2017, we've had, I think it was $12.9 million in external funding. The Ideals Institute has been awarded over $3 million. They've touched more than 10,000 folks throughout their engagement. And so just doing lots of different things across those key strategies. Next slide, please. And so this one is just, and again, I think I'll ask Deb just to send you all this so you can see it in more detail. But that is just a sort of high-level overview of just some of the things that will be happening just this quarter across our entire campus. Remember, DEI is not just about what we're doing at the division, but it's about what's happening across our entire campus. And so I'm really excited that every single campus on our unit is connected. Every department on our unit is connected with a DEI unit plan or getting in the process of getting connected with one. All of our colleges have a lead DEI person that really is helping us to strategically think about DEI. And so just some other happenings across the university. We're having tailgates that are focused on our most underrepresented populations. That hasn't happened a lot. Training modules. We're doing some very specific stuff related to minority and women-owned businesses and really trying to help engage them with the University of Arkansas. We kicked off an initiative this year for that. Our students have been involved in that initiative. We're doing some outreach and pilot programs with the Marshallese community, partnering with Enrollment Services and some of the units, as well as a Multicultural Center. We're doing some wonderful things with corporate and our industry partners, Tyson's and Walmart, J.B. Hunt, Procter & Gamble, just really working together because we're all in this together. We just received a small grant from TIAA that really is allowing us to do some very special outreach and engagement with our employee impact groups. And so really excited about that. So just want to say that inclusion includes you, every single one of you. You matter. Your leadership is essential for consistently increasing the value and worth of your degrees and benefiting our campus, region, and beyond. And so as you go throughout the day, next slide, please. As you go throughout the day, just think about some things that you can do. Think about how you, as a society and an alumni, can think about mentorship and do some outreach and engagement. Think about how you can connect with students and families. Our Black Alumni Society, we were tracking enrollment, and we had a large number of students of color from some rural, underserved areas in our state that had started their application but had not finished it. And so Enrollment Services was able to give us that number. We reached out to our Black Alumni Society. They literally band together and made phone calls of the alum made phone calls, and we were able to flip about 340 students from pending to completion of those applications. And about, I think 60% of those ended up coming to the University of Arkansas. So you all can have major impact. Also, supporting scholarships, particularly need-based scholarships, is so important. I encourage you to all think about forming a DEI committee if you don't have one, and develop a DEI plan. If you need help with that, just give our office a call. We can certainly help you with that. Read our newsletters and our communications. If you're not on the list, send an email to diversity@uark.edu. Let us know. We will get you connected. But ask the tough questions. Ask, so have we ever thought about this? Why haven't we thought about that? Are we being as inclusive as possible? What can we do to help enhance diversity within our specific group and our specific focus? And then be intentional and avoid thinking of groups as monolithic. Diversity, there's even diversity within groups. And so we really want to think about that, and not thinking about, and move away from thinking about folks in a box. So those are just my challenges to you as you go throughout the next couple of days. And again, thank you for all that you are doing, and know that the Division for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion loves you and appreciates all that you do to work with us to help our campus to become the best that it can be. Thank you.